Hey everyone, this is Edwin Olvera from edwinolvera.com, aka the Successful Freelance Dancer. I know it's been a while since my last interview. Nevertheless, I've been out there on the road traveling. I've been to places like Phoenix, Arizona, Sedona, doing work and premiering some of my projects. I've also been in Connecticut and New York, and I'll be on the road again in Seattle coming up soon. With all this traveling, I still take the time to reach out to wonderful artists and guests to participate in my interviews. Well, this one has taken me close to a year and a half to finally make it happen. It's with a gentleman. His name is Kile Ozier. Now, Kyle is what you call an experienced architect. Basically, what Kyle does is he helps put emotional content to large-scale productions and special events that help in return generate an emotional connection with the audience, and also help supplies funding for the company or a profit for the organization. In this particular interview, you're going to go up and down through this emotional roller coaster with Kyle and myself. We talk about everything from Kyle being an openly gay man and dealing with the struggles and how we overcame them, whether it was through alcoholism or the loss of a loved one through AIDS. We also talk about his journeys in entertainment and some of the wonderful connections that he's made throughout the world. We talk about events. We talk about being professional as an artist in our field of work, and knowing that as artistic generators and creators, even we too get incredibly tired and exhausted and have to take a break, and then come back with this fresh new look on life and our craft and keep producing work for others to enjoy. Please make sure to leave comments down below, and also please make sure that if you get a chance to meet Kyle in person, that you shake his hand, you give him a big hug, and to say thank you so much for sharing your time with us. All right, Kyle. So when you were growing up, when did you realize, or maybe your parents realized, that you were showing early signs of this creative, like guru side of you, as in with either the artistic direction, the large scale movement, creativity, the writing? When did you notice it, or when did your parents notice that?
Okay. Okay, let me just say. So I have a girlfriend, we're so close, who laughs about being in my first production. And I remember this clearly. I never thought of it until years later as a production. But I took her out. I was raised in Southern Oregon, Klamath Falls, tiny little town, 17,000 people, very small town. So I drove her out into the country and turned the lights off in the car and drove into this field where I had set up a bale of hay on a rise that, sitting there, you looked down this tiny little valley between two rows of trees at the full moon as it came up. That's why I'm kind of emotional talking about it, because I think that was my first production. I wanted her to see, it was like the perfect place to see the full moon. And it wasn't a romantic relationship. It just, Nancy is very special to me. And I wanted to show her, I found the perfect place for the full moon. I've always been kind of early on a quiet perfectionist. Now I'm just a, loudmouth perfectionist. But, so there's that. And in school, I was in drama class. But I was also in student council, and I was also in athletics. You can do that in a small town.
You can be in everything.
Yes. So I was in, I acted, and I was, as I say, a student leader and whatever, and a swimmer. And, it didn't show up early. Did a lot of work in schools. Like when I got out of school, I went right into politics. Politics was really where I was going. My degree I went to Georgetown, was in foreign service, and I had an idea. And this is pertinent, actually. It's all pertinent, but I had an idea that a lot of us who went to the School of Foreign Service at Georgetown really learned that that's not the career we wanted, because it's really civil service. The way it works, you probably know, but it's civil service. So for the first 2 years, they move you every 6 months to some new station, and you might travel, but then you're waiting for people to die and retire before you move up. I'm like, I'm not waiting.
Yeah, it's a waiting game. It's too long,
Yeah, it's civil service. So I had this idea that I would go into international business at some point, and I would travel the world to where there were problems, like a dock strike in Hong Kong or a this or that. And my job would be to parachute in, get a grasp of the situation, get both sides to work with each other, and resolve the problem. This is my big idea. And what's interesting is, that's kind of what I do. Is I parachute into alien situations. A new client. I do a lot of work internationally, but even local, domestically, learn what the client wants, know what's possible, gather the right team of experts to create that, choreographers, composers, set designers, whatever it is I'm actually doing, and I resolve the problem. It's not a problem, but in parallel, in metaphor, and I create an experience, whether it's a show or a film or whatever it is I do. It's that process. It's diving into something I don't know with the tools that I know I have and figuring it out. So I kind of am doing what I thought. But I still thought politics. I was National Youth Director for the Jerry Ford campaign in '76. That was my last. No, one more Republican after that. And that's when I started coming out. I didn't come out till I was 20, fully till I was 28. Wow. I had a very straight life in high school and college, and almost got married twice to women I love very much. One of whom, my high school sweetheart, we're still really close. And her husband came to my 50th birthday, and he's like, I am the happiest man in the room that Kyle is gay. And even so, he's still a hard act to follow. I've got good relations. So I was straight, Republican. I really liked Jerry Ford. I moved to Colorado in '78 to run a campaign for state treasurer for a real jerk. Like everything that's wrong with the Republican Party at that time was this guy. But that's when I met a guy. And it totally fucked up all my politics. Because that's one thing I knew the minute I realized I actually was gay, and this wasn't a phase, because in the '60s and '70s, it wasn't like it is now.
It wasn't as open or so, like the way people are more accepting around the world, everywhere,
No, in fact, none of that happened really till after AIDS. And we can touch on that later, but no. Just jumping around, when I came out, my family didn't talk to me for 10 years. It was a huge deal. So when I started feeling what was up, it was like, I didn't want it. I would pray about it. Maybe it's a phase. I'm going to outgrow it. But then finally you're like, then you fall in love with somebody. You're like, okay, now how do I explain it away? It's not an urge. I'm in love with this man, and there you are. So I at least, had the self-awareness so I left the Republican Party, moved to San Francisco. And that was funny too, because this by now is '78. Actually, I will answer your question through all of this.
No, it's okay. Keep going.
I came to, I was living in Denver with my partner, Donald. And he was a teacher. So he was telling me, wherever you can find work, we can move there, which is cool. So I looked at New York, I looked at Los Angeles, I looked at Houston, and I came to San Francisco to visit another old girlfriend of mine. My first older woman, and she would, anyway. It was great. Sue, she was, it's so funny now to call her an older woman, because she was 29 when I was 24, and that was huge,
A big deal.
Check me out. And anyway, she was getting married, so I came out here to San Francisco. We were sitting out on Pier 39 up in North Beach, and I came out to her and said, I don't know where I want to live. I kept, and I started talking about all these cities I've been to, and she looks at me like I'm out of my mind. She's like, there's sailboats on the bay, the sun's shining, it's San Francisco. She's like, what are you even thinking about? Come here, It's like, oh, yeah, okay, I'll move to San Francisco. So I moved here, went to work for Levi Strauss. I was there for a couple of years in import-export. Got into corporate communications. So still, it's all logistics. It's really production.
Yeah.
If it's anything in what we do, it would be production. Corporate communications, so I was writing. And here's what happened. You've been to San Francisco, right?
I have just recently, actually, for Jeffrey's wedding.
Oh, there you go. So there's still a show here called Beach Blanket Babylon. It's like what's the show that's been running forever in New York? It's called.
Was it Forza Bruta?
Oh no, but it's a cabaret show with what's her name? Christine Patti always plays Liza Minnelli. It's a Broadway show. Anyway,
is it cabaret or is it Chicago?
No, it's a cabaret show that changes all the time depending on what's running on Broadway.
Oh, no, I've never heard that one.
It's in the Starlight Diner on Broadway and 50th. Anyway, sorry to digress. So Beach Blanket Babylon has been running here for 45, 50 years now. I met in an aerobics class Steve Silver, who was the producer of this show. One thing led to another, and Steve, he was like the celebrity in San Francisco, homegrown, big show, running forever. He was the one that City Hall used to call on to produce inaugurals and state visits. When the president of Argentina would come to town, Steve would do the big show in City Hall. And he was tired of doing that. So what happened was he came to a couple parties I gave that were sort of complicated to attend. He had to wear this and bring that and write a poem or whatever. And he's like, you'd be good at this thing. So the mayor's office started asking the phone company to loan me to the City Hall for my first show was Dianne Feinstein's second inaugural in 1984. And then it was the president of France, and then the Queen of England, and then the Democratic Convention. And I was being paid by the phone company for 2 to 6 weeks to be producing these shows in City Hall. And I was having a blast, and I was working my ass off, as you know. But it never occurred to me I could get paid for this. Yeah, I just wasn't thinking that.
Yeah, that could be a position,
that I could do this, right? So about 8 months in, after I'd done the Democratic Convention, 7,000 people in City Hall. The City Hall here, if you have never seen it, make sure you see it next time, because it's actually 4 inches taller than the nation's capital. Huge atrium, huge marble stairway, and it's a great stage. And for me, it was all the marching bands and the different branches of the military and opera divas. It's a great stage. So my editor, Diane, with whom I am also still close, took me out to lunch, and I thought she was going to fire me because I was never at work. and this is the thing. She said, okay, Kyle, eat, because I'm not going to fire you. I said, okay, great. And she said, I'm not going to fire you. You're the best writer I have. You do have the attention span of a gnat, which I have since cleared her on. That's called multitasking now.
Yeah, the ability to do all that.
Yeah, and the fact is, after I'm at my desk too long, I need to go do some other thing. Like you, I don't know like you, but if I'm working on something I'm creating and I can't get anywhere, I go to a movie or I go for a walk or I work on a different project so that I can let my subconscious get to work.
Absolutely.
Because if I'm just doing this, I'm not going to get anywhere. So I didn't think of it, but that's just my natural how I was working. So she goes, but look how good you are at this thing you do. She goes, I think you should do this. You can stay with me as long as you want. I mean, you can stay with me for years. I can keep you busy, but when you're ready, you should go out on your own. This was a huge conversation. Because my family, I don't even remember why, but I remember my uncle sitting me down and giving me a lecture in high school or early college about putting food on the table for my family. I don't remember what the issue was. It had something to do with, but in school, I was taking, appropriate classes, government, foreign relations, economics, but something, I can't remember what it was. But anyway, it was all about, you need to get out of school, get a job, and start putting food on the table, and get married and have kids and all that. So the first time ever anybody had said something like that, like, you could actually be doing this and getting paid for it. It was a surprise to me. I had just never seen it, even though it was always there. So I worked for Diane. I didn't finish the year at the phone company and went out on my own, and that was in 84. '84. By the end of '84, I was on my own, and I've been on my own ever since. 1 year at Universal Studios as creative director. That was '96, '97. But all the rest of the time, I've worked for myself.
Wow, and all of it has been like freelance contracts, correct?
Yep.
Like consulting contracts, stuff like that.
Yep.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. First, it was hotel grand openings and galas in San Francisco, and that was from '84 until '90, and I did a tour for Stanford University, and I'm just telling you stuff here, Edwin.
Yeah, but this is great because it's interesting how one person believed in your natural abilities and saw it for what it is. While others might say, "Oh, this guy's lack of focus." No, there's hyper focus. That's the difference. People like you and I, we have the ability to super multitask. I mean, my friends are like, "Edwin, how the hell did you get all that stuff done in 1 week or within 5 days, right, of a business week?"
Right.
I said, "It's just, I don't know. I don't get much sleep. My brain is active. I'd rather do something with it instead of sitting around doing nothing, and I'd rather be multitasking because I know I can get it all done when someone else is suffering because they can't do that. That's not their natural trait. I can't play the piano and I can't play the flute. Who cares?"
And that's back to that's another question to answer later. The metaphor I would use. I don't know if you ever saw these. There used to be a catalog called Spencer Gifts.
Oh yeah, I know Spencer Gifts. Yeah.
Okay. Well, they had a triple-decker checkerboard of clear acrylic, and you played checkers in two directions, or three different. And I would say that's how my brain works. Like I think. I was great at geometry, not so good at algebra. I'm great at geometry and space relationships. And when I would, for instance, when I would put these shows together at City Hall, I might have, 18 moving parts. This performing group and that chorus and this diva and this and that marching band and the Navy and the Army and I would have them all staged all over City Hall and bring them in and down this staircase, at the appropriate time. And so I knew everything about what was supposed to happen, and I was ready. If something went wrong, it's like, great, then we'll pull that. I knew where everything was, and that's the way I write my show flow, or I call them timelines. But so that everybody, as I go through my show flow becomes my production meeting agenda as the show is built, so that everybody on the staff knows what's supposed to happen at any given time. So when something goes wrong, I can say one thing, and whoever's near that thing knows to swing into action. Nobody's surprised. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like everybody knows the show. I don't need to keep it here. It's like we all know the show. And
it's the ability to give everyone information up front when they need it so you don't have to get the call. Hey, I didn't get this information. No. I sent it to you. You just didn't look.
Yeah. And my timelines, I should send you one. Actually, there's one of in my blog, there's a chapter on this. It's like, I would have people, your job is to stand by that exit door. And when I say to the diva, go stand by that door, because she's going to walk by that door, turn around, look at me and go, this door? And all you're there to do is say, this is the door.
That's just get through, do your performance.
And so that because if she's like, this door, and I'm distracted, she's going to be worried. But if you're there to say, you're in the right place, that's it. We've done our job, So everybody's calm, and we move into the show. So
that now when you got because your brain thinks this way, and you're who in your life in those early stages, and even in your mid, say 30s and stuff, influenced you to help you realize that is a hell of a trait to have?
Well, Steve Silver, the producer, who called me sort of pulled me into the business, that was an acknowledgement that he would trust me with this thing he'd been doing. Really, it was everything for the mayor's office of protocol. So that was a big deal. This is interesting. I'm going to walk through. I don't know the answer to this question, but I'm going to find it with you.
Sure. And I'm here.
Thanks, man. And listen, Edwin, you'll have to cut this out of I really apologize for being over familiar before we met.
Yeah, sure, no worries.
It's my style, and I realized that I'd stepped over a line because you don't know me, and so I just apologize for that.
No worries. But I know you from your work. I mean, because the magnitude of the projects that you've done when Peter and Eric were telling me some of the work that you've done, and I started doing research on it, and then I started reflecting on my own past project that were considered large scale, at least for my time. Like when I did the Pride Fest 2012 in Milwaukee, and that was a 5 hour production with 38 performers. Over. I mean, it was really elaborate. How do you eat up 5 hours worth of time when you have 15 minutes of choreography, and then you have 30 minutes of lighting stuff going on, then you have another section of voguers doing their thing and hula hoopers. Like how do you I had to make a whole story. I mean, I know the craziness that I went through the first time I went through something like that. Also in the field that I wasn't an interest in or expertise, but I had to do my homework. I had to do research. Like you, I had to craft up my first ever long timeline. I've never heard of doing timelines.
Yeah.
There was a lot of stuff that I just didn't know. So then when I started reflecting, I said, my God, the magnitude of me just doing that project and then seeing other people who are in this artistic field, from Leanne, from Gavin, from yourself, I said, my God, these guys are, um, there's something, there are these natural traits that other people have, which are, again, the ability to multitask, the ability to have large amounts of information condensed into simplest form so that these people can take action on, right? They have to go out there, do their set. Preparation, multitasking, I mean, not getting much sleep and still being able to perform and produce
Yeah.
and project and be creative. Like, there's not a lot of people that can do that. And so when I started looking into what you've done, I said, my God, we already have a lot of things in common, and we've never met. But I respect the hard effort and work you've done.
Thanks.
Yeah, no worries.
It's you're able. The basic thing is keeping track of all the moving parts without it becoming a challenge. And I think that I've just never been challenged by it. In fact, interesting, just back in 2013, a buddy of mine who's head of Disney Creative, Walt Disney Imagineering, wanted me to come present to his international creative executive team. And I'm like, what am I going to tell Disney? You're fucking Disney, and so it's like, well, sure, I'll come do this. It's like, and he says, I just wanted to know who you are. And I was thinking literally, well, I tell him who I am, born in California, raised in Oregon. And finally, about half an hour before this prezo, I just said, Roger, I don't know what to say to your people. Why am I talking to them? And he goes, well, my people are really good at show and they're really good at parade, but spectacle really gets in their way. I'm like, oh, great. Okay, great. Then if that's the problem, I know how to deal with it, because it just never got in my way. Magnitude was never the problem. You know what I mean? It's like, because, I was a little odd the first time I walked into City Hall, and in fact, that was it. I'm jumping around, but
Sure, that's okay.
He called me in November of 1983 and said, and I wasn't working with a phone company yet, and he said, we're doing this big show to honor this person at City Hall who had done all this stuff for the city, and so every arts organization in the city was involved in this: the ballet, the symphony, the opera, the theater, the zoo. I had a Bengal tiger coming down the steps. It was like everything, and he says, the producer isn't getting it together, and I just need somebody to organize this procession. Okay, great. So my first piece was really just the 15 minutes where everybody came down the stairs, just organizing that, and then from then it went to. And then I went to work for the phone company, and 3 months later, I'm being called back to do these other things. So, what am I telling you this for?
About your ability and your.
Oh, so yes, I was blown away at the size of City Hall, but it just never occurred to me that I couldn't do it.
The thought of hesitation wasn't there.
No.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, it's still, the Bengal tiger was big, but it's just people, and that, see, so many things are coming to me.
Is it like, I have this thing that a lot of people get really, so I'll share with you. When I tell people that I'm not afraid of working with 100 people, 250 people, 300 people, when I say that to some people, when they hear the numbers of 300, they look like a deer in the headlights. Like
yeah.
They can't, but for me, I'm like, no, because whether it's 10 people, 5 people, 1 person, or 300 people, you're still just giving commands or you're giving directions. And if you're clear and you're confident in what you're asking them to do, they'll follow you, whether it's 5 people, 10, 50, 1,000 people, 2,000, but people have hesitation in their voice and in the way that they're projecting either their creative service or even themselves. And so when they see somebody who is confident in that position, like yourself, like your ability, I believe, to also deconstruct large amounts of information and make it into a simple form for others to digest it and then take action upon, not everyone can do that,
No. And you have to be clear on what you want. But I say that I have always been clear in what I want. So I didn't have to find a way to be clear on what I wanted. You know what I'm trying to say?
Got it.
Because I didn't have to teach myself to be clear. I just, as I say, I have no filters. So two quick anecdotes.
Sure.
One of Jerry Mitchell, whom you know, and Joel Gray. And so I do these shows in City Hall, and it's, very complicated and whatever, an audience of 7,000 was probably my biggest. And then, sorry, I'm just thinking. So, my car wreck was in 91. And that was when we'll maybe get back to the whole LA movie.
Yeah, absolutely. That'll come next in the next comment, next questions.
Okay, but magnitude-wise, had done everything I could do. Every opening in San Francisco, every hotel, closed streets, made them winter one, all that stuff. But I was just a local guy. So then I went to New York in 94 to produce the Gay Games opening closing ceremonies. And that was at Columbia University and then Yankee Stadium for closing. And I'm working with Jerry Mitchell, who at the time was like Tommy Tune, I can't remember the other guy, and then Jerry were like the three in that order were the big guys in 94. Jerry was, I can't remember his name. Tommy Tune had a protege. We'll both remember after the conversation. Anyway, so Jerry was my choreographer. And Henry Krieger, who wrote Dreamgirls and who wrote Sideshow, about the Chinese twins, that were joined at the hip.
No.
Sideshow. Right. Henry Krieger, who wrote Dreamgirls, was my lyricist, and then a guy named Jonathan Sheffer, who was big in New York at the time, was my composer. A bunch of New York guys. And I was just some guy from LA, right? So from LA, right? So
you're from out of the box.
Yeah. But the thing I learned from Jerry early on was I was watching him put together the show for opening. He had all his dancers, and we had, 400 dancers, but they all knew Jerry. And but watching him build the choreography was the first time I'd ever seen somebody go, the music's playing, and he goes, so I'm thinking, no, and then I don't know. And somebody would go, well, how about this? That's it. You don't have to have all the answers.
Yeah.
Which was the first huge revelation. That's collaboration. And that's, you're respecting the people you're working with. Everybody knows something. They're looking at you. You'll decide. You're the director. But if you hear everyone, this is a model I use all the time. I call it the theater model, because everybody, if you, like when I'm working on a production, I might ask the lighting designer something or the set designer something, and everybody has an opinion. And then you go, okay, here's what we're going to do. And everybody's like, great. And they fall in line behind you, right? Yeah. They're going to make it happen. But what the difference is, you have heard them all versus directors who come in and it's like, here's what we're doing. You're just the lighting designer. Don't bother me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So anyway, watching Jerry respect his troupe and build the choreography together was a huge lesson for me. Basically, you don't have to know it all.
Absolutely.
I have to know. I know what I want to create. I know the feeling I want to get. I have, I'm not an artist. I can't play an instrument. I can't paint. So I have to get out of you the movement that I envision. But I'm not going to. I don't even know how to do it.
Yeah, you don't have to physically do the flip or the turn. You just say, can you do a turn or a flip that looks interesting?
And you're going to, like, if I'm working with you, I'm going to say, here's the feeling, and you're going to go, oh, how about this? And it'll be way beyond what I was thinking. Like, oh, that's great. Can we do this? Can we do that? I might I remember, this is just nickels and dimes, but I was doing a show in Melbourne for a charity, and the choreographer, I can't even remember his name.
Was it for the Ronald McDonald one, the Ronald McDonald charity?
Yes.
Yeah.
God, you have done your research. And this guy, huge ego, good guy, but huge ego. The choreographer, he was like so you think you can dance judge down there. Yeah. Really good. But it was interesting because, I mean, he was doing a great job. And my contribution, all the kids came in with these lights and moved in fast. And I just said, you know what? What if they move fast, but they move the lights real slowly? Just a little twist. Yep. And it looked great. Because they're moving across the room fast, but they're just doing this with the lights. Because if you're doing this, it's all, energy.
Yeah.
He totally got it. But that's what I mean by, I'm not a dancer. I wouldn't pretend to be a choreographer, but I know the feeling I want to get. So you collaborate. You have to collaborate. And I just learned that from Jerry. And then the other little story I was going to tell you is about confidence, what you reminded me of. So when I was doing I did the candlelight ceremony for the quilt at the Lincoln Memorial in 92, October. And my talent was Melissa Errico, who used to be on Broadway, Michael Callan, Patty Austin, Liza Minnelli, Joel Grey. You know who those people are.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Well, I have to check sometimes. People are like, Liza, what? And so anyway, I used Liza as a speaker, just inspirational speaker, because if she sang, it would just be Liza singing, so I did that. But Joel Grey was my finale, sang the final song. And he showed up for sound check. And I'm like, this is fucking Joel Grey. He's huge. And I must have seen Cabaret, not exaggerating, 14 times. But I worked in the theater where it was running. I mean, Joel Grey is Joel Grey. He shows up, and he walks onto the Lincoln Memorial, and he says, "Are you the director?" I said, "Yes." He says, "What would you like me to do?" I'm like, "Great question." I said, "Well, not that I can tell you what to do." I just said, "Well, here's what I envision. Stand here, do this part, and then move here and do that part, and then that's it, and then we'll do the thing behind you." And he looks, he goes, "Great, I'll do that." And what I got from that is, first he wanted to know what I was the director, so he was giving me that respect. Now, I know if I'd been, well, I don't know, we're thinking this, if I had been weak, it would have been, get out of my way, here's what I'm going to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah, here's my opinion then, because then he's like, well,
I'm going to have to save the show.
Yeah.
But back to what you were saying, it's like, if you are confident and you have a vision, a professional will at least want to hear that vision first. And if it's one person or if it's 300 people, if you stand there and go, here's what I want us to do, they're going to do it. They're going to do it. And there's nothing wrong with saying, in your close-up group, it's like, I don't know what to do with this one piece. Somebody will have an idea. Great, that's it. That's what we'll do. It's Absolutely. The confidence to know what you want. It's the confidence to be clear that it's not a failing not to know how that would be, how that would manifest. And the confidence to ask somebody what they think and not to have to be the guy with all the answers. Because what a burden that is.
I know. That also causes, the task that we are asked to do for people, whether it's a large scale or even a smaller type of production, is already stressful in itself, and so when people can help you supply answers, again, like you said, you don't have to have everything. So for example, when I did that Pride Fest thing, there were some of the dancers who were so upset, and they called me that I wasn't a real choreographer, and I told them, let me tell you something straight. I said, well, you don't understand my method of creation and how I got exposed into this professional realm of dancing. I'm like, when you work with a company like Pilobolus, right? That's my years of experience. Mm-hmm. It's not about the director telling you to do every single fucking move. It's the dancers in the group who actually get choreography credit, because we're the ones who generate the ideas. We're the ones who bounce ideas. We're the ones who bounce ideas back and forth off each other to problem solve something that the director is asking for us to make. So it's a collective, it's a shared experience, and some of these dancers did not want to hear it. They're like, well, as a real choreographer, we would come in, we'd set all the moves. I said, yeah, but what do you do, Kyle? Like, here's my situation. What does one do when you have a person who's a hula hooper who's not a dancer, A person who is a vulgar, not a classically trained contemporary dancer, and yet they all they're volunteering their time and service to be on stage and share it with these people, but they don't have those techniques that the other people have. So you got to learn how to blend and take the best of what people have and then present it. And let's say
they trust you. Actually, speaking of trust, I did the ceremony for the 40th anniversary of the signing of the United Nations Charter, which was here at the Opera House in San Francisco, and it was like the 8 living original signers. These old diplomats are all at this ceremony that the city was doing. And I remember my buddy, because I used to be. There was a woman in town who did a lot of production, and there was me. And everybody who worked for me was like in their 20s and 30s and hot, all guys. And everybody who worked for Rita were in their 20s or 30s and these amazingly hot babes, So the two of us just had the hottest teams, And most of them, like my friends were, lawyers or accountants. They had their own jobs, but they would be stage management for me because my stuff was weekends and evenings, right? So it was just a way to get away with paying somebody not much, and they would come be in the show. But my best friend, John, he was backstage with all these original signers, these, august, revered diplomats that you read about in history books. And they're all sitting behind the second curtain in these little wooden chairs in the dark, waiting for me to tell them what to do. And John comes out and he goes, Kyle, look behind that curtain, And he says, look how much fucking trust you have. And it never occurred to me. It's like, but they knew they were in good hands, and they knew that if they did what I told them, they would look good. And it wasn't about me telling them. It just clearly I was in control. And I said, can you guys just sit here until such? So they're like, yeah, whatever. And it's like I never really thought of the power I had at that moment over these, and the trust I was getting from these diplomats.
But that trust comes because, again, it's all the actions that you do. All the actions that you've done up until that point, whether when those diplomats came in on board on that project and the people were saying, hey, we have this director, this creative person, he knows this stuff, he had done all this, all it does, one, your work ethic, your drive, and your the creation process is so sound for the way that you do, the way that you've done it, that people respect that. And so they don't question it. They know that this guy's the man. One second, I have to plug in my computer before it dies.
It dies? Okay.
1 second. Let me get rid of this thing. This is what happens when we're doing live.
Yeah.
Here's another question that I wanted to get into. It has to do with this is what we were talking about earlier. You had mentioned about your injury, hurting your leg.
Right.
I watched the video of you talking about how when you were younger, you almost tried to hang yourself. You were bad, not tired. It didn't work, right? So those are obstacles, and they were very, very, I don't know. It's an obstacle that some people don't normally want to share about their dark times or dark moments. Can you share? Can you go into depth in maybe one or two of those? And how did you overcome it? Because there are people, as we all know, a lot of artists. They go through tough times. Even people in general, whether they're not artists, but they're art enthusiasts, everyone goes through a tough time. A loss of a loved one, a financial loss, confusion, maybe spirituality, whatever. In your case, you were dealing with alcoholism, and you're also dealing with coming out, being openly gay. So can you share with that how you overcame your fears and your troubles,
It's funny. My dad died when I was 5. And we were really close. And I think it affected me more subconsciously than I realized. But he used to come home. He had one of those, it was like 1956 2-seater T-Bird, and he would come pick me up. He was a test pilot. So he would go to work at 4 a.m. He'd be home at 2 or 3, and he'd come pick me up. And I would, this was before seatbelts, I would stand in the passenger side with my arm resting on the dashboard, and we'd drive off, and apparently I would tell my mom that we just went and talked about things, me and my dad. It's interesting because I remember he died February 14th, 1957, and I woke up and I went into my mom's room, and she was lying in bed. The sun was coming through the curtains, and I crawled up under the bed, and I said, "Has Daddy gone up to heaven?" Kids. It's like, whoa. And I know that from then on, Christmas carols would make me cry. I was I have a personality, but in repose, I think I was very sad. And my sister used to say that, when she would catch me not knowing it was looking at me, my face at rest was always very sad. And I've seen pictures, and it was, although, this is me, so through high school, I remember running out of a Christmas concert once because I just couldn't handle it, I was crying. So I carried that around a lot, and I think that part of my outgoingness is a defense against that. I don't want to overanalyze myself, but so my dad died when I was 5, and that was part, I think, of what made me extremely sad. I don't know. I had inklings when I was in high school of the gay thing. I didn't have a label for it. It really wasn't. There was no word for it at the time. Gay wasn't a thing anybody talked about.
Yeah.
Or didn't talk about it. Just wasn't the word. It was homosexual, and I knew at some level I was attracted. It's funny now because when I go back to high school reunions, it's like, okay, I remember the reason I had my group of friends is like one guy had great hair, one guy had a great butt, one guy had great legs. I probably had crushes on all my buddies, but I never really put my finger on it, so to speak. But it's like I had a pretty hot looking posse, but I never acted on it. I was,
out of fear, and then also the time, the time situation, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't accepted, yeah.
And I remember in 1969, I was a junior in high school, and the riots in New York, the Stonewall riots, was really fascinating to me because I knew at some level those were my people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yes, there was in high school. I did at one point take a jump rope and tie it to the rafters in the basement and tie it around my neck and jump off a chair. The knot was so shitty, and I was a Boy Scout, so I really should be ashamed of myself. That it came undone, and then I was like, I'm sure at some level I tied it poorly on purpose, but it was on my mind, and I dealt with that for the longest time. And then, to your point, everybody's roughest time is their roughest time. Whether we can't compare our roughest times to each other.
I know.
Because if it's your roughest time, it's your roughest time. And but I felt very alone. I knew I couldn't do anything with these feelings in high school and in college, and it was easy to ignore them. Everything works great when you're 20 anyway. It doesn't really matter, who you're with. And the truth is, I was very much in love with Susie, who's still my friend, and I was engaged again once in college. But then it got to the point where I would, in the early 80s, late 70s, I guess, because I'm still in the Ford campaign, I would take my dates home at midnight and then usually go hang out outside a gay bar in D.C. Rarely would I go in because I was terrified. And then, it's funny. So I'm on the Ford campaign. So now it's 76. And there was one guy, Clark, who was this fire plug, cigar smoking, backroom politics. Everybody was terrified of Clark because he was Midwest, Chicago, just a scary guy. And one night, I was coming out of a bar, and he was walking in. And I like that. And I saw him. I'm like, fuck, hi, Clark. And I'm like racing down the street, and suddenly it's like, whoa, wait a minute. He was going in, and I turn around and I walk back, and he's standing in front of the bar. And, as I say, bulldog, always bulldog. And he's got his hands on his hips, all gay, hi, Kyle. And I'm like, oh. So
you were undercover all along.
That and the other, so Clark sort of took me under his wing to introduce me to gay Washington, and really, because I didn't know anybody. And the other person there was a football player, Dave Kopay, who wrote a book who came out. He was playing for the Washington Redskins. He came out in the 70s, and that was another for me, because the only gay people I could see were not me. Obviously, the drag queens led the charge at Stonewall, and there are people who can assimilate, and people who don't care to, right? They're the total fairies and the queens and and they just terrified me when I was young. It's like, I don't want to be that, I mean, you get over all this stuff, but, back when you're afraid of it, you're afraid of anything that looks like it. And then this football player comes out. I'm like, you can be a football player? It was a huge step forward. And when he wrote his book, for me, it was a huge revelation that, anybody could be gay. This is because it was really, really not common for people to identify as gay in the 70s and in the 70s. And jumping ahead, when I was doing the games in New York, we needed an athlete to give the oath to the athletes. And I'm like, Dave Coupe, I knew he was in Los Angeles. I called him up, and it was really cool because Dave came out early. After he came out was Martina, and everybody knew Martina Navratilova, right? The tennis player. You probably don't.
No, I don't.
She was big Russian, but everybody knew she was a lesbian. She was all about, there's no way around it,
Yeah.
And then Billie Jean King, who she's still alive. But they came out a little bit later. And then by the time Greg Louganis came out, the Olympic diver, it was just more of an accepted thing. So I called Dave. Greg wasn't even out yet. I called Dave in 1994 and said, I need somebody to come give the oath to the athletes. And he was at a very low point. He, on the phone, got teary with me. Just a second, my landlord's just asking me if I'm home. Yes.
Say goodbye.
And he said, I just feel forgotten. I came out so early, and I said, you're not forgotten. And now, of course, actually it's really cool because to end up being friends with your hero, because Dave and I are really close now, and once he came back into the public life to do the gay games, he's become like an ambassador for the NFL, and he's talks all over the world, and his book is published again, and high school boys all over the world write him letters because of his book. Not that I had anything to do with that, but that was part of the normalization. But back to your and I being asked to stir the onions. Can you give me just a second here? Let me stir it.
Yeah, sure.
Make an onion soup.
Yeah, no worries.
That is very funny. Okay. Ooh, smells good. All right. Anyway.
No, Kyle, when you come back, you realize, oh, damn, the onions are actually not even onions anymore.
Yeah. So, the sadness.
Yeah.
I truthfully, that's when people say to be honest, it's like I'm always honest. But I carried my father around for a long time. I felt very alone for a long time. I had a partner, Terry, whom I met in 1986. He died in 1990 of AIDS. Back when, it was a matter of months when people get sick and be gone.
Yeah.
And, speaking as a psychologist that I'm not, I think I have always had abandonment issues since my dad left when I was 5. Through no fault of his own. But I had a hard time with relationships. It's funny because I'm a strong guy. I mean, you have a sense of me. But I have as a producer in all aspects of my life, the Academy Awards party that I started back in 1980, has now been running, 38 years, 36 years.
The Academy of Friends, before it was called something Oscars.
Yeah. And I've always had a very strong, I don't know how far down this road I'm not afraid to go down any of it, but I don't want to digress too far from your vision. But I know that sometimes you can feel trapped in a persona. You know, I'm like very active in politics, very active in social, issues. AIDS, HIV, schools, education, fundraising for people with disability. I'm just an active guy, so sometimes you get trapped in that, not able to really let your guard down because people expect this guy
all the time.
Yeah, and I remember a date I had once with a guy I had this huge crush on, and we were having dinner, and he said something, and I answered this question really honestly about, looking for someone to be with, and I could see as I was sharing myself, I could watch him go, "This isn't what I wanted." I wanted Mr. San Francisco,
Yeah.
And I saw it happen on his face. I was like, "Fuck, this is awful." So
because people want you to open up, and then when you do open up, they don't want to hear it sometimes.
Yeah, no, they want whatever script they have going in their head.
Yeah.
So, I'm just looking at the drinking thing. I drank a lot in the 80s, but I drank a lot in the 80s. Everybody was dying. Easily.
Yeah, I couldn't even imagine knowing that people that you are have had conversations with or time with or shared moments with, special moments that would never know, or others, and then that essence of life, that person, that being is gone. They're not around, and then another one, then another one, and another one. Like, how do you take that much loss? It to me, it almost seemed like somebody who's in a war and seeing their friends just disappear, left and right.
It's exactly what it was, and we've used that metaphor. It was all the 20-somethings and 30-somethings. I went to 2 funerals a month easily for 6-7 years. Twice a month easily. You'd go to memorial services, funerals. People were dying all the time, and you get this, battle fatigue. What they used to call when guys would come home from the war with, I can't remember, gun something.
Was it like shell shock? You mean?
Shell shock.
Yeah.
That's there's just, so you're numb. And where I went with that, and at Georgetown is a heavy drinking school. It's the East Coast is there are some schools that are about drinking, and so for me, I drank to celebrate. I drank when I was lonely. I drank when I was unhappy. I went to alcohol for everything. And I remember once I was driving across town here and thinking whether I was going to drink Cuddy or Tanqueray tonight. And I thought, what the fuck are you doing? You're actually on the way to a party trying to decide what you're drinking tonight? You have a problem.
But we don't think of it that way, we all.
Yeah.
We all.
And I remember asking a friend of mine, because everybody drank, and I remember saying to my roommate at the time, I said, I might have a drinking problem, and of course nobody wants to hear that because who's next, and I said, well, Larry, you drink a lot. He's like, I don't have a problem. Okay. And so I couldn't find anybody to talk about it with. But
that puts you back in the state of being lonely then, because now you're trying to share, you realize, and nobody wants to hear it again.
Oh, see, that's good. So really, I have been very alone most of my life. I have a few close friends. Terry, who my partner who died. I mean, Donald and I separated after we moved to San Francisco. We just grew apart, and we are still very close friends. I tend to be friendly with. I mean, if you're in love with somebody, there's got to be something to salvage in there somewhere. But at the same time, back to the AIDS thing. Yeah. The way we used to make friends was you'd sleep with somebody. You meet them in a bar, you go home, you fuck, and then you're friends.
Then you're friends.
And that's how, the first time I gave a party in San Francisco, it was 30 guys I'd had sex with and their boyfriends. And it's like, and one of the jokes in the black humor days of AIDS was, you start to ask questions at dinner that you used to ask at breakfast. It's like people slowed down. So I don't know why I went there, but it was. So when all those people die, you've been intimate with these people, and then they're gone. So Terry, We met in 86. And he was the first person in a long time, or maybe ever, that loved me for me. Part of it, you have to be out for anybody to love as a gay man. You know, it's not going to happen when you're in the closet. So who knew everything about me and still loved me, which to me was a miracle, you know. And then he died in 1990. So I think it wasn't really until I quit drinking, which was, I mean, there was no way around it. I went through the windshield of my car. My face was totally lacerated. All my internal organs went through my diaphragm and collapsed my left lung. It was 10 days in intensive care, very close call. And I woke up in the hospital, my face, covered with bandages, and my friend was there, and I said, I really made a big mistake. I think I need to see a shrink, and I think I need to stop drinking. It's like, those are two very good ideas. And I just quit. And I've been in therapy since then. Not like I'm at a counselor, and I joined a men's group in New York, which is really the best. For me, the men's group worked the best. But it wasn't really until, it's funny, Edwin. I don't want to paint a bleak picture, because I'm a happy man. I give people happiness. I give a lot. It just sometimes it's a lot of work.
Yeah, I'll share this with you. I've told this to my wife and to my kids, and also to some of my friends. I said, they see me traveling the world. They know that I'm doing what I love. What they don't know is a lot of the lonely time that I have, right? Where, like, for example, yesterday was my son's birthday, but I'm not at his birthday. I'm not physically there, so I'm doing Skype with him as a substitution while I'm crying, because I see my son having a beautiful birthday that I never wanted to miss, I perform in front of, say, 4,000 people one night, and then I got to go back to the hotel room, and then I got to, keep all this things excitement, openness that I am as a person. I got to go back to the hotel room, because you got to keep your life somewhat private, and that's hard, to be able to put all that stuff out there for all these people, week after week after week, and then come back home and be lonely. Sometimes it's depressing. The depression comes with the fact that, like, you're in a different place with people sometimes you don't know who they are, and all you want to do is to have a genuine connection with someone. Whether I'm in the Middle East and I'm like eating food alone by myself on some little plaza, or I'm swimming at a pool and I'm like looking around, like trying to make eye contact with anyone just want to say hi. Like, that's weird. You see what I mean? But I love my job, and when I get in my job, I excel, I do well, I'm confident, I have all these things. But then there's these moments where they're the in between. What do? I pick up a book, I read, I do, But a lot of it is alone. It's a lone path that we walk to put out creative and interesting work for others to admire.
And the alone time, it all fuels the muse. It's all those experiences alone. You're in your head, which is where the work is done. And you're observing life and having experiences. And I actually, so Terry died in 1990, and I have been single until last April, so 27 years. And I had finally got to a point. This is where actually it was it was Valentine's Day, so it was February. Just a year. I was at the point, it's like, I'm 64. It's not going to happen. You need to really accept this and embrace it and not be bitter about it. I have an amazing life. I've been in a million places. I know great people. I've been around wonderful talent. I've been able to move people and raise money for people who are dying and people who need education and bring stories alive. I love what I do. And, I would love to share it with somebody. But that's the only thing I don't have. And it's the only thing I really wanted. And then out of nowhere, this guy shows up. So, seriously, 27 fucking years. and he hit me up online. Jackson's his name. And I took a look at him and I said, "You're too young and you're too hot. Go away. I'm not going to do this to
Unless you bring good chocolate, because I know you like chocolate."
Yes. And he was very funny. He says, well, maybe you should get to know me first. I'm like, go away. Anyway, so he didn't go away, and he'll be here tomorrow. And this is truly, in my life, I had a really rough year last year financially. Dubai was a great experience, but I didn't work I came home in November, and I didn't work till August. So it was really dry. But on the other hand, it's like, I know Jackson's not a gold digger because I was broke, and I laugh. It's like, but this guy loves me like I've never, ever encountered, like a book. And he weeps when I take him to the airport to leave, openly sobs. It hurts him that much. And I told him, I said, it kills me that it hurts you so much, but it makes me feel great. I feel like $1 million that you feel this way. And so I'm learning, honestly, for the first time, I'm learning to be a partner. Because Terry and I, it was a different kind of relationship. We never moved in with each other. We had lives on opposite sides of the bay. Donald and I came out into that relationship. I have many, many good friends, many people I see often, and that we connect well and share ideas. Many colleagues that I work with, but I haven't been in love since Terry died, and in 1990. And what's interesting is what I'm learning now, this late, how to be a partner and not a mentor, how to be just the partner. I'm the shoulder to cry on, or I'm going to cry on your shoulder, to find equality and the whole ebb and flow of a relationship is all new to me, and it's an exciting lesson to be learning at this point in my life. But while I've yearned for a partner, I've never resented not having one, because it's the feelings inside of me that are my tool. If I can move myself, I can move you. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
As I create a story or an experience, if I can feel it, then I know it's authentic. So it's been where my muse lives. And anyway, I don't even know where I'm going with this. I know we've digressed way off.
No, not at all. No, all of this helps people understand. As creatives, we're very hypersensitive to space, to light, to sound, to everything, what's going on. We're very observant. Our eyes are always open. Our ears are really listening, and we watch movement a lot. And my wife always tells me, you're one sensitive guy. And I said, what do you want me to do when my instrument, my body, has been trained for 11 years to be so sensitive in the form of touch with other people around me? Am I not supposed to be sensitive? You know what I mean? All of this information, Kyle, helps people understand, in order for artists to hit another level of creativity and success, whether it's financial success or creativity success or even networking success, it all comes to the fact that we're aware, hyper-aware, emotional, and we're open and let people know that we can be. We're firm when we need to be, clear and direct when it's necessary. And it all comes from past experiences, current inspirations, and then future ideas,
Yeah. You know what? So, creative to your audience, you don't have to know all the answers. The sensitivity thing is, because not only is your skin sensitive, but your soul, you, Edwin, our souls are very sensitive, and so what I want to say is learning to not take it personally.
Yeah.
Because you can be hurt by the world, and to find a way to take a hurtful experience and know that it wasn't about you, that when somebody does something or something happens, it's not about you, but you do feel it more than
the average person.
You're empathetic, and so you feel things, you take them in. It's not personal, but you need to be aware of it because you're going to use it. When you dance, you're expressing an emotion physically. So that's real sensitive stuff. What is this? Somebody's calling. Just a minute. I think it's going to be Jackson.
Saying, stir the onions again.
Yeah, it's just Jackson. Let me just shoot him a note real quick.
Yeah, no worries.
On a Sky interview, give me a few. I love you.
Right. And he's like, perfect.
Yeah. I'll just get a note from him in a minute, and then he'll stop interrupting. Do you hear that when he pops in? Do you hear the?
Yeah, I can hear it all. Don't even worry about it. It's all, sometimes when people have done interviews, they always try to edit everything out. But this is life. I mean, to cookie cut every little thing out, that's not fair, because you don't get to see what we go through. We have great conversations, and then all of a sudden, the person sends you a text message, or the phone dies, or something goes on. And I think the ability to not have to edit every single damn thing is also important too. I think people need to hear how the rawness of the conversation, and respect that as well.
I think, to your point, if anything, that's the thing if you're a budding creator, to know that the insecurity you feel is natural. I believe we all feel it. Ever since high school. Actually, I remember a director friend of mine who made a comment about, the first time he was on a film set. He's a movie director, and he was like, this and that, and action, and he thought to himself, they're doing it. And I remember that story when I was at Yankee Stadium. We've got all these teamsters, and we're setting up scaffolding, and we're doing this, we're doing that, and these guys, big old burly guys, are coming up to me like, "Where do you want this?" And I go, "It just needs to be over here," because as a producer, all they want is somebody to be responsible.
Yeah, somebody tell them what to do.
Right, I want it there, and then I'm like, none of these people know I'm just Kyle from Klamath Falls. I'm just Kyle, and they're doing everything I'm telling them to do, and it's fine. In fact, I hope I never. Well, it's really too late for me to become jaded. Every time I get on a plane to go anywhere, I'm like, I'm fucking going to Dubai.
Yeah, again.
I'm going to London. I'm going to wherever. I'm going to Shanghai. This is amazing.
Yeah.
I could have been, cleaning out a barn my whole life, but no. So I am always excited to be doing what I'm doing. I'm always excited to meet the new artists I'm going to be working with. I'm always excited about it. And friends of mine who get jaded about travel or the job, it's like, dude, you should do something else then. Because why would you want to get jaded about creating? Be excited. Don't cover that up. Be sad. Don't cover that up. Be sensitive. Be bothered. Know that intellectually, that if something hurt you, it may not have been aimed at you, but embrace the pain. I want to know how to communicate that at some point. It's part of the thing that makes us who we are, I think. Never deny, I'm telling you this, but I never deny who I am. I just don't. Which is, what's the point? It's like dating, if you fake it, you're going to have to fake it through the whole relationship. Through
the whole entire time.
Remember my best friend from college, he came to Denver, and I had to come out to him. And, I was living with Donald at the time. I hid him away. Craig and I went out drinking and this and that. And finally, because he knew my girlfriends in college, he knew me, Mr., big man on campus. And so it's like, as I came out to him, and he it was after the end of the night, and we're both a little buzzed. And so I told him, and he sat there for a minute, and he goes, "Well, you've done everything else." And I'm like, oh, I expected a bigger reaction than that. But if you don't hide, if you don't hide anything, you have nothing to hide. It's all, I just believe in being authentic in a real way, and who you are. And I'm just looking at the end of the games, I took my team out to a nice lunch. And of course, at the end of a show, that's when you learn everything. Your staff tells you all the things they weren't going to tell you during the show,
yeah,
right?
Absolutely. And it's called the after-action review. Here's what worked, here didn't, and then here's why. Yeah.
And they started talking about the look I get on my face when I don't like an idea. What? That's awful management. I want to hear every idea. And oh, no, we can tell, and like somebody would be saying something, Kyle doesn't like that idea. Just shut up. Don't say it. And I'm like, no, you got to tell me. So what I started doing back in 94 was, with every new team, I would say, look, when we're talking, and if you see a look of disapproval on my face, ignore it, because I need to hear it. I will get past it. I am not a poker player. I know that. If I don't like you, you know it. So just talk past, and I don't even stop somebody in the middle of a conversation and go, ignore this, ignore it. I need to hear this. I was judging you there for a second, but I'm not now, because I know myself enough. I don't want to stop the idea. I may not like the idea, but I need to hear it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, because sometimes in that process of being generous with someone's idea, the problem that you had could be solved quickly, because maybe you're thinking about the problem, then this guy's like giving you a solution, but you don't want to hear it right now. But then, actually, you're right. Actually, that's going to solve the whole thing here.
It's a good example.
Yeah.
I'm busy solving the problem, and I'm not hearing the solution. It's like, well, that's because you're not listening. So listen.
So listen. I was going to say, when you're, at a point now about finding inspiration, talking about inspiration, you mentioned before when you get stuck in something that you go for walks or you go out, you take action, you do things. Is that where you also find inspiration in the sense of going for walks or being in motion? Or is it when you're cooking, or was it when you're just, like right now we're having this conversation? What are a couple things that inspire you or give you inspiration or creative fuel?
Usually it's other people. Like this conversation we have, Edwin, yeah. I know it'll come back to me many times. I mean, I like you. I like the language you use. Like when you talk about being generous with people and listening to their ideas, that's a really good way to look at it. And it makes it easier to do. So that's inspirational to me, using that generosity as the tool to make you hear people. I love the outdoors. I'm from Oregon, so me and rain, we're like the same. My trainer in New York, I'd show up in the winter and I'd walk into the gym and he's like, I knew you'd be smiling. Nobody else in New York is smiling, but you're smiling. I love the rain. Rain makes me thoughtful. But I couldn't say there's a theme. Well, today I had an experience. Actually, today I had a really cool experience. I'm walking along in the metro station, and I hear this guy say, guys, so there was another guy walking in my general area. He goes, guys, any of you have a couple of bucks for a sandwich? And I hear these guys all the time, and I just walked on into the shopping center, and I thought, Kyle, buy the guy a sandwich. What the hell? And I stopped, and I went back out, and he looked up at me, and I said, are you hungry? He goes, I'm starving. I said, let's get you a sandwich. And he said, oh, okay. I said, what do you want? He goes, anything, something cheap. I said, no, let's get you some food. Come with me. We went inside. There's a food court, and we were talking. He goes, my name's Rick. And I said, no, I'm Kyle. And he's like, he's on the street. He smelled awful, but he was lucid and he was clear, and I didn't know, but I just got a note in my head when he said very clearly, and you guys got a couple bucks for a sandwich. It wasn't spare change. I don't know what it wasn't, but what it was is I heard it. And so we're walking in and went to starting towards this Greek place, and I said, you want some meat? You want this? And he goes, just something cheap. And I said, okay, Rick, stop telling me cheap. I'm going to feed you. In fact, you need meat. So we went down to Foghorn, which is like a meat place, big old slabs of prime rib, and so let's get you some real food, and he's like, I don't think this has ever happened to me before. And he was telling me, I have a house, I just ran out of money, and I don't know. I didn't ever get the sense, because sometimes when you're being sold something.
Yeah. They're marketing their stuff to get some money,
I wasn't getting that at all, and he was just he said, I'm kind of ashamed, and I said, and I said, I've been, I think, where you are, just not as long as you've been there. So I've lived on the street, and not for very long, but I know how it feels. And he goes, are you kidding? You look like a millionaire. I said, I have clothes. I said, I had clothes before, and I have them now, but so And I asked him, I said, what do you do in real life? Like, what do you do when you're working? He says, oh, I used to be a DJ, and then I was a snowboard instructor. It's like, okay, the guy's had no direction in his life. But it was very clear. Anyway, so I bought him this, and so I said, well, here, let me buy you this meal, and they were cutting it and this and that. He says, I have a favor. Oh, and then he said, would you give me $3 so I can buy a beer later? I'm going to want a beer later. And I laughed. I said, yes, because you asked me for exactly what you wanted. Of course you can have a beer. I said, I want a beer. And then so when I came over with the meal, he said, look, I have a favor to ask. He said, I really need to stop drinking. Oh, and I said, are you drunk now? He goes, no, I'm not. I'm a little buzzed. I said, okay. I just felt really good about this guy. And he said, I need to stop drinking. So he said, could you be my sponsor? I said, well, so I can't be your sponsor because I'm not physically available to you. Like, I can't meet you every day.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what, if you go to a meeting tonight, you call me after the meeting. I said, I'll do that. I'll be your temporary sponsor. You need to find a sponsor in AA. He goes, I'll do that. And then he said, I don't think anybody's ever done it. I made him feel good. He gave me this big hug at the end, and he kissed me on the neck, not in a gay way. And he said, thank you. He said, thank you so much. I'm like, Rick, climb out of this. You can do this. Stop drinking, And he called me this afternoon. He'd been to a meeting, And I'm like, on the one hand, my voice is saying, do you really need to make friends with this drunk? But it's like, yeah, I do. I think I just felt like 8 feet tall. And when I parted ways with him, I felt like I didn't need the escalator. I felt great. It's like,
sometimes people just need the conversation. Sometimes people need to be in presence of another person just to help them get through that moment. Just being there, being present with them, just showing up. You showed up for him even at that moment you never met before, but the fact you were there.
It's this is the key to living a life, I think. And I'll stop with the anecdotes at some point. Back in 2011, when I first came back to San Francisco, I went to a movie with some people, and we walked out of the theater. And there was a 6'6" big old black guy shouting at the crowd. And we all walked past him, and nobody paid any attention to him. And then I heard him. Suddenly he shouted, does anybody see me? Does anybody see me? And it hurt me, And I went over to him, and I said, dude, I see you. I said, I have no money for you. I have nothing to give you, but I see you. And he was scary. He was like, big and tall and angry. And I just said that. I said, I see you. And I took his hand, and I said, that's all I can give you, but I see you and I hear you, and that's all I got. And he looked at me for a minute, and he just went, and he goes, well, bless you, brother. And he meant it.
Yeah.
And I said, good luck to you. I wish I could do more. That's all I got. And I walked away, and he went back to his rap, but it was like, anybody guys for a change? I'm looking for some change. I'm hungry. He was so calm. And it's like that. If you just listen to the world around you, whether it's for your inspiration, but it's humanity. If you look people in the eye, if you put the phone down, and not you, but if we just pay attention to what's going on around us, you can't help everybody. I can't buy everybody a sandwich, but I heard today a voice through all the clutter, and I heard somebody because there was a guy next to him who was drunk, who was slurring, "Give me a sandwich too," And I was like, I can't help it. And I said to Rick, I said, do you know this guy? He goes, I don't know that guy. I'm like, cool, then let's go get your sandwich, But I just treated him like a real person, like I would treat any talent. Joel Gray walks up, and I relate to him like who I am. And I gave this guy me. I never thought of it that way, but I was 100% there. I wasn't like, ooh, don't touch me, you're a street person. I just went over and said, are you hungry? Let's go get some food, like I would say to you.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes, to your point, it's if you treat people like human beings, you're going to make a difference. And it's going to make a difference to your art. It keeps you from becoming jaded about anything. Because life is, no matter, I don't particularly believe in God. If anything, I lean course, Eastern religions and, Buddhism and reincarnation and past lives. But no matter what I believe or don't believe, I believe there's an ebb and flow to a force and a spirit in life. And it's all a fucking miracle. I mean, it's a miracle. A little baby, it's just how old's your son?
My son is 7 and my daughter's 4. They're so little.
Just, yes, when they're just little bundles of honesty, and that's it. Like, sometimes I can see a baby in a carriage and I'll give him a smile. If I get a smile back, my day's made.
Or if the child looks at you like this for long periods of time.
Yeah.
Because they totally see what is going on.
So life, it's just full of miracles. And just don't sweat the small stuff. You're going to get through it. As I said, last year was the roughest year ever for me. And I knew I was going to get through it. I didn't know how. And sure enough, suddenly these 2 gigs showed up in August, and then I get called to Dubai, and I'm getting paid well again. I come home, I got 3 clients, and life is good. But I look that way in July, But I'm too good. I love what I do. I'm going to do it again.
And this is interesting that you bring that up. That sometimes people, when we're in these creative events, and entertainment period, because what we're doing is we're entertaining people, whether it's through their eyes or through their mind or through the experience as they're walking through and all this experiential marketing, projects that happen. But because we don't work a 9-to-5 job, sometimes you have it all, and then sometimes you have quiet moments.
Yeah.
And that's part of this entertainment. The entertainment industry is that people, sometimes you're really hot and people know you and they remember you because you've been doing cool project after cool project, and then sometimes it gets quiet again. But as long as this is kind of just for both audience, everyone who is listening, is that there are going to be moments in your entertainment profession that you're in where it's going to get quiet, and the key thing is to keep building your community. And I know that you were very active in what you created with the whole Academy of Friends back then, and also with myself. Like when it's a little quiet around where I live, I created this thing called the Mandate, which is men hanging out, gay, straight, whatever. We all hang out once a month, and we do something, whether we're doing like a potluck type style of dinner, or we go, like, for example, this is the new 2017, so we're gonna go out to the bar. First round of drinks around me, taking care of people that I care for, right? Like, you do community-based things that help fuel yourself and also occupy your time while you're waiting for the next project or large-scale event to come through,
Yeah.
Be active
I like
in
that.
the community.
So it's like the guys.
Yeah.
Mandate. The guys get together and just relate as guys.
Yeah, and there's no judgment. There are guys that are there, like I mentioned, who are couples, and there are guys who are retired. There are guys who are businessmen. There are people who are divorced. It's just because, as we both know, sometimes men, whether gay or straight or whatever, sometimes have a hard time opening up and expressing ourselves because we're seen as, this is the male figure, this is how male should be. And I think, I think we just need to be open and share, like, hey, today I'm having a rough time. Hey, I really want to do a project, but I don't have the manpower to do it. Can you help out? Hey, I would like to connect with this person, but I don't know how to do it. Like, hey, just come to the group. I'll introduce you. We'll have a connection that way. It's interesting.
And through that, I have an actress friend of mine in London. She's a very successful actress, and she said her husband quoted her once as about the insecurity that rests inside all of us as creatives. She goes, she's just always afraid. I'm always afraid that people are going to find out I'm just a jobbing actress, and we're all like, I always feel like if I go through a slow period, it's like, oh my God, they figured it out. I'm a fake,
Yeah.
Because I make this up as I go along, and it's very easy to undermine yourself. But the fact is, it's that rhythm that gives your life texture and gives you, me, the
drive, the spark
to create.
Yeah.
If I had to create all the time, well, it would be depleting. You have to take it in, and sometimes, even your most fertile field, you're going to lie fallow once every 3 years, or you've got to let the muse recover. So if you don't do it on purpose, life will do it for you. There'll just be a slow period. So 100 years ago, there was a Life Spring and S training and, the sort of group therapy things. But one of the things that I really remember from it is what you resist persists. And it's true, if you're having trouble in a relationship and you don't want to talk about it, it's not going to clear it up. You have to address the problem or look life full in the face. What you resist about life isn't going to just go away because you're resisting it. You have to just let it in and deal with it. But I think, and with me, it just becomes a part of the story I'm going to tell another time. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
We're taking a lot of time here. Are you okay?
Yeah. No, don't worry. I want to ask you these questions. These are the funny ones that are quick, lighthearted, and just straight off the top of your head. It's called the Lucky Seven, right? Lucky Seven. We're gonna get some Lucky Seven info from you.
Okay.
All right. What's your favorite non-alcoholic drink?
Well, Pellegrino.
Pellegrino, awesome.
Yeah, Pellegrino, yeah. Pellegrino with a second as there's a drink in the UAE because there's so much fruit drink there. Lemon and mint.
Oh, lemon and mint. Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Where would you like to travel?
Jordan. I would like to see Persepolis and the older cities. Jordan is my first answer. My second answer is Bali or the Maldives.
Oh, yeah.
I want to go to one of those hotels that's all on stilts over the water. I just want to go to one of those. But those two, and then another place is I was thinking about this is in inner China there are the vast countryside of like these round grass covered hills and misty. I'm talking romantically, but some of the wilderness of China in the temperate area would be interesting to see. So those are 3 areas of the world. I've never been to Jordan. I've never been to inland China, no further than Shanghai or Beijing, and I've never been to one of those beaches with stilt hotels. So those are my 3. You didn't ask for 3, but I gave you 3.
No, that's good. At least we know where you want to go. Make it happen.
Yeah, done.
Who's your favorite actor? This is a tough one. I see it in your face.
Yeah, it is. It is because like right now I've got a crush on Ryan Reynolds ever since Deadpool. I just enjoy him so much because this is like, as a gay man, I find Ryan Reynolds excessively masculine. There's no defense. In fact, he'll play anything, he'll do anything. That's really, to me, he's so comfortable in his skin that I just admire him, and I actually envy the comfort that he has in his skin. So that's that. But as an actor, I was thinking about this today too. I took a look at those questions and thought,
I know you're searching. I can see it in your eyes.
Yeah, because obviously Meryl Streep is amazing, and Kate Blanchett is what she is, and there are a list of very good actors. But I really like is Jake Gyllenhaal.
Oh, he's amazing.
Well, because I love Donnie Darko. Brokeback Mountain blew me away. Both those guys, Heath Ledger and he, just were, again, from a gay man's point of view, to see those two boys tell that story, both being straight, I just thought it was stupefying, really. They just did such an amazing job of telling a really powerful story. See? So those guys. And then Jake, since then, everything he does is different.
He literally transforms himself as an actor, as a person. He morphs physically. It's like a person putting on a prosthetic or something, like to be a different character. He physically challenges, just like Christian Bale. There's another actor who is really good at physically changing himself.
That's good. That's good. Christian Bale's a good one.
Cat or dog lover?
Well, both, but mostly dogs.
Oh, got it. Do you have one now?
No, but I don't have my own place, and I live in the city. But Jackson and I are talking about the kind of dog. I'm like a husky, Malamute, that kind of dog guy. I mean, I like a dog that is a partner, and that I'll throw him around, and he'll throw me around. I like a dog. So
not a little Chihuahua running around biting your ankle, pissing people off.
Although I do have a friend of mine, a director in New York. They have a tiny Chihuahua named Samson, which I think is a riot. Like,
it's like
Samson, why'd you just name him Hercules? So yeah,
oh my
dog.
God. If there's a person you can meet tomorrow, who would it be and why?
Who would I meet? That's funny. That's the question that's on the. It's between the two pages, so I couldn't read that one.
Yeah, sure, no worries.
So no, let me think. Who would I want to meet tomorrow? Who's actually alive? Yeah. Give me a minute. I'm gonna like really. Barack Obama.
Oh, got it. Pick his
Yeah.
brain, sit down and talk with him, you know?
Yeah, that was 10 minutes with him, 5 minutes. That man, so graceful. So I wish I had his patience. Yeah. Anyway, so Barack Obama.
Language you like to learn?
Probably Arabic. I
Yeah.
speak Italian, so I'm good with the Romance languages. I think Arabic.
Yeah, I'm really fascinated with Arabic. I would love to learn it. I had a blast learning like yella yella and shukran and
Shukran.
shukran and marhaban
And inshallah.
People laugh when they see me. They're like, "Are you Arabic?" I'm like, "No, not, but my hair is." And last one, your favorite dessert. I know you love chocolate, but within the realm and spectrum of chocolate, what would it be?
My favorite dessert is hot pecan pie
Ooh,
with Haagen-Dazs vanilla ice cream on it.
that's a good one.
That is like the worst thing for you, but the best.
Yeah.
I mean, and you're right, devil's food cake and all those things, but hot pecan pie with vanilla ice cream is my favorite dessert.
I was gonna say something. One is when you if you come to Milwaukee, and when you do come to Milwaukee, you need to go to this restaurant called the Hollander, which is off Downer Street, and they have a kick-ass pecan pie, a real thick,
Really?
big, yes, with vanilla ice cream. I had it 2 years ago, and I go there and I get it when I want it. When you need that fix, yeah, I'll let you know about that later. It's called the Hollander on the Downer
I'm writing
Street.
it down right now.
Pecan pie, you got to get it, the best.
The Hollander. I'll let Phil know.
Kyle, now this is the part where I would love for you to share with people your social media accounts, as also your website, so that people know where they can find you to continue to do their research on who you are and what you've done. And I highly recommend that everyone does do that who's listening.
Great.
So if you want to share like what your blog is, your professional website, and then
Yes.
and other things.
Yeah, and actually, so I have a book. It's called IMHO, which you probably know. It means in my humble opinion.
Oh, got it.
The joke is that none of my opinions are humble, so it's so it's in the iBook store, and actually somebody suggested, which I hadn't even thought of, is I can put it in the Amazon store too. So it'll be published across the reading device universe within a month. But right now it's IMHO in iTunes. If you go to the Apple Bookstore. Well, that's my book, and then my blog is it's
it's
because I changed it.
Is it the imho.kileozier.com?
Right. imho.kileozier.com.
Ozier.
And it's KileOzier, which is important. And then my website is kileozier.guru, which is really, I mean, when I saw that there was a guru suffix, it's like, oh, I got to have that. I'm not a guru, but I thought it was fun to have. So my website is KileOzier.guru. My blog, in my humble opinion, is imho.kileozier.com. And I'm on Facebook, Kile Ozier. I have a Twitter, Kile Ozier. I just use my name. So
it's easy to find you then, Kyle.
Sorry? It's easy to find. I have nothing to hide.
Yeah. It's hard when some people have all these other names and asterisks and dots and doubles. Oh my goodness, it's crazy.
It's funny because I used to work between gigs. I would work at Apple Soho.
Yeah.
And when the iPhone came out, these kick-ass women from Wall Street would come in, and they're all like dressed to the nines and high heels and just all Wall Street. And then I'd be signing them up for their iPhone, and so I'd need their Apple ID. They'd be like hot chica Latina 42, and I laughed. I go, "Oh, that was pretty cool in high school, wasn't it?" They're like, "Yeah, sorry."
Doesn't work now. It looks stupid. Like my brother has his name. It was Tito Chestnut at Gmail. I'm like, Robert, who wants to hear Tito Chestnut? You dummy. Like just Roberto Olvera. How about that?
You might want to change that. It was very funny, but no, I'm pretty easy to find and accessible. I think that one thing I like about what I do is I teach sometimes at colleges, just master classes in making the emotional connection. And with me, that's the through line of everything I do is finding a way to make a story newly connected emotionally to people, even if they think they already know the story. And to do that, you have to be connected to your own emotions. And anyway, that's I think the most important thing in what we do is to strive not to filter ourselves, because it doesn't really matter. Not everybody likes me. I mean, not everybody has to like you, but you have to like you. And it's really taken me a long time to get to where I really like me. Love didn't hurt. To have somebody who loves you makes a big difference. But that's been, frankly, it comes and goes. I don't know how you are. I'm different, but I'll go through periods where I'm really not smugly happy with myself, but just happy. I'm liking what I'm doing. What I'm creating is good. And then sometimes I'm like, I don't think I'm up to it. I don't think I've been fooling everybody. I can't get it done. And at those times, you just have to stop interacting with people and let it pass.
Because you might say something the wrong way.
Yeah, just let it pass. When you're feeling down, let it pass.
For me, it's going on long ass walks. I just go for a real long walk.
Yeah.
And then I come back in a happy state because I'm high off the movement and I've had enough air in my body to cool my ass down.
Yeah.
Well,
Edwin, this has been great to meet you.
Absolute pleasure. I'm so happy that I have been persistent with reaching out to you and letting you know that I admire your hard work and everything that you've done. And although we've never met physically, by just looking at the stuff you've created and following your images that you've put online, I really admire what you're doing, man. And keep it up, Kyle. It's you're gonna inspire a lot of other people who are maybe started in the path of politics, but realize they're also creative and that they want to pursue it, or people who are young and gay and want to create the creative route and realize that it's okay to be in touch with their emotions and let it out when you need to, but also contain it when it's necessary, And
just a quick example that you can put somewhere in your blog, but this right now on Netflix there's a series, The OA. Have you seen any of this?
No, I have not.
Okay, it's a big hit on Netflix right now. The woman, the star of it, her name is Britt Marling. She's an actress. I've seen a couple of her films. She did one called Another Earth, and she does these low-budget-ish, they're science fiction, but not all about special effects. Her background, very quickly, graduated from Georgetown, degree in economics, got a big job offer from Goldman Sachs. And she goes, nah, I think I want to be an artist. Moves to Hollywood, and she can't get cast in anything but like the blonde in the haunted house, right?
Yeah.
And so she's like, all right, fine, I'm going to teach myself to write. She teaches herself to write. She works on 2 scripts. She actually divides her time, as an economist would, with morning she's working on one, afternoon she's working on another. Both of them opened at Sundance in 2011. Wow. She's good, and now she's in this. Brad Pitt's the executive producer of this series, The OA, which she wrote. It's just a great story about, she was on this trajectory of Wall Street, Goldman Sachs, and she listened to herself, and says, I want to be an artist. And then when she can be the artist she wanted to be, okay, I'm just going to teach myself. I'm going to get these films made. And she's not even 30.
Wow.
And she's not backed with a lot of money. She just did it, So to your point, it's like, if you're in one career and you notice you're not happy, look around. You can have 5 careers in a life. You can have 10. If you're doing the wrong thing and you know it's the wrong thing, you've learned something. You haven't wasted your time.
Yeah.
If you learn it's not what you want to do, then don't do it. But you did it, so it's part of who you are, and you're taking that to the next thing. So if you end up creating and you've done 6 other things, from sales to car washing to whatever, this all comes with you. Now it's part of a unique package of you
that nobody can ever have. They can learn from you. But they're not going to ever have those particular moments or interactions or conversations or experiences or emotional ways that one has gone through.
Right.
Yeah, this is really interesting. This is where we could continue for our next conversation.
Yeah, right. So go.
No, but here's what I'll do, Kyle. I'm gonna end this conversation on the recording, but we can just chat for a little bit after. 1 second. Let me just end it, okay? Okay. 1 second. I'm gonna go to here, and I need to go here. Hey everyone, and welcome to this Saturday session. This is Edwin Olvera, aka the Successful Freelance Dancer. Just want to inform you of my latest interview. It was such a blast. It was up and down kind of roller coaster of laughter, nonstop laughter, and it was very high-paced energy. And the person who I interviewed is Rebecca Rasmussen. Rebecca and I have known each other for about 10 years on and off. My twin brother Roberto Olvera used to dance with her in Momix Dance Theater, which is a company based in Connecticut, in Washington Depot, Connecticut, alongside Palobolis. They're almost like sister companies, and they're pretty wonderful to have watched and work alongside these other group of amazing performers. Now, what's so funny about this conversation is that as we were doing it, my young daughter Vivian Rowe